Messi just delivered one of the greatest individual performances in World Cup history, and FIFA gave the Best Player award to someone else. For days, nobody in football said a word about it. Pundits picked sides quietly, Argentina buried its heartbreak in silence, and José Mourinho, of all people, just watched and waited. Then he spoke, and what he said didn't just defend Messi. It exposed something FIFA never wanted anyone to say out loud. Because somewhere between a 99th-minute substitution and a golden trophy handed to the wrong man, football just witnessed one of its strangest injustices in decades. And the man who spent 20 years trying to stop Messi, the man who knows better than almost anyone what he's capable of, was the one who finally called it out. Stay until the end, because his final line about Messi's legacy is the kind of sentence that gets replayed for years. But before we get to Mourinho, let's set the scene. Because to understand why this moment matters, you need to understand exactly what Argentina and Messi just went through. Sunday night at MetLife Stadium. Spain 1, Argentina 0. A World Cup final decided by a single goal, and a dream of back-to-back titles gone in an instant. In the aftermath, it was Julian Alvarez, not Messi, who first spoke to the pain of an entire country. The Atletico Madrid forward, who'd fought his way from the bench back into the starting lineup after Argentina's third group match against Jordan, had been one of the team's most consistent performers all tournament, capped by a decisive goal against Switzerland that sent Argentina through to the semi-finals. On Instagram, he wrote words that captured what millions of Argentine fans were feeling. Eternal thanks to all Argentines for their constant presence with us. They kept encouraging, supporting, and believing in us until the end. He admitted the team had dreamed of winning it twice in a row, but he said what they lived through over those 50 days, the belief, the run, the fight, would stay with them forever, regardless of the scoreline. And then came the line that would end up echoing through every headline that followed: "We will rise again." It was a graceful, dignified response to defeat. But not everyone in Argentina was ready to be graceful, because while Alvarez was thanking the fans, a very different reaction was building, one aimed directly at FIFA. Argentine outlet TYC didn't wait long to unload. Their target wasn't Spain. It wasn't even the result. It was FIFA's decision to hand the tournament's Best Player award to Spain's Rodri. Their argument cuts right to the bone. How do you name someone the best player in the entire World Cup when his own coach substituted him off in the 99th minute of the final, with Spain down a man, in the single most important stretch of the tournament, in favor of Martin Zubamendi, a player who hadn't featured a single minute all World Cup? TYC didn't mince words. They accused FIFA of dodging controversy at the cost of disrespecting a legend. Messi, at 39 years old, going up against players 15 and 20 years younger, had proven all tournament that he was still the best player alive. And now the sport's biggest individual honor was going to a player his own manager didn't trust to finish the final. It was a bold accusation. But it was about to get louder, because the question of what comes next for Messi himself was only adding fuel to the fire. Here's what makes this moment even heavier. Nobody actually knows if we just watched Messi's last World Cup. At 39, he finished the tournament with 8 goals and 4 assists, numbers that would be a career-best tournament for players half his age. According to Spanish outlet Marca, Argentina's Football Association is already working to convince him to continue through the 2028 Copa America, a timeline that would line up with his current contract at Inter Miami. But Messi isn't rushing anything. Reports suggest he plans to evaluate his body and his form season by season before making any decision about his international future. Meanwhile, head coach Lionel Scaloni is already looking ahead. 6 friendlies planned between September and November as Argentina, a co-host of the 2030 World Cup, starts building toward the next cycle. So here's where things stood. A nation in mourning. A newspaper accusing FIFA of getting it wrong. A legend whose future is genuinely uncertain. And an award sitting on the wrong mantelpiece. That's when Mourinho decided silence wasn't an option anymore. He opened with a warning, essentially telling people he was going to say exactly what he thought. Consequences be damned. And then he said it. The Best Player award at this World Cup should have carried one name: Lionel Messi. Any other conclusion, he said, doesn't survive contact with the facts. He was careful to draw a clear line first. This wasn't an attack on Rodri. Mourinho said he respects him, that his performance was disciplined and genuinely important within Spain's system, but that, he insisted, isn't the question. The question is what criteria you're supposed to use when picking the single best player across an entire tournament. And when you apply any objective standard to this World Cup, he said, you land on the same name every single time. Then came the numbers. Messi won man of the match in 6 of his 8 matches. Mourinho asked people to sit with that for a second. The same panel of judges evaluating match-by-match performance picked him as the best player on the pitch in 3/4 of his games. And then, when the tournament's biggest individual prize was handed out, the decision went a completely different direction. That contradiction, he said, is what he genuinely struggles to understand. 8 goals, 4 assists, 12 goals with his direct fingerprint on them. At 39 years old, not against a weak field, against hundreds of players at the physical peak of their careers. Mourinho called it something that's never happened before in the tournament's history, and something he doesn't expect to happen again. And then he made it personal. Mourinho spent years of his career building tactical systems specifically designed to neutralize Messi. He knows, not in theory, but from direct experience, exactly what it means to face a player who can dismantle an entire game plan in a single second. So when he watches what Messi did at this World Cup, he's not watching as a fan. He's watching as someone who understands precisely the scale of what he just witnessed. His central argument was simple but sharp. Argentina reached the final because of Messi, not as an emotional statement, as a cold, tactical read of the tournament. Anyone who watched the matches knows how many times he was the single difference between going home and moving on. He was the answer in games that looked lost. He was the moment maker when things were tight. And that, Mourinho argued, is the actual definition of a tournament's best player. Not someone who plays well inside a strong team, but someone who makes his team stronger than it has any right to be. Then, he turned his attention to the award itself. 1 goal in extra time, he said, ended up canceling out everything Messi had done across 8 matches. But that's not an evaluation of performance. That's a reward for the final result. And there's a massive difference between the two. Individual awards, he argued, exist specifically to measure something separate from the team trophy. If the award is just going to automatically follow whoever lifts the cup, there's no reason for it to exist at all. You might as well hand it to the winning captain and skip the ceremony. He wanted to add one more thing about what made Messi's tournament so different. It wasn't only the statistics, though those alone would be enough. It was that he showed up exactly when his team needed him most. In moments when most players shrink from responsibility, Messi demanded the ball. In matches that looked completely shut, he found a way to open them. That, Mourinho said, isn't just talent. It's a rare kind of character, and it's what makes Messi the greatest player he's encountered in his entire career. He's coached against the best of the last 2 decades, and he said, without hesitation, that he's never faced anyone like Messi. No one else has made him rethink an entire game plan mid-tournament. No one else has made him feel like everything he built could collapse in a single moment. Mourinho was careful not to make it personal against the voters. He said he doesn't doubt their intentions, and that they're entitled to their opinion. But he believes the award, as it currently stands, has lost part of its meaning, that it's become the prize for the best player on the champion team, not the best player in the tournament. And that distinction, he said, matters enormously. His closing argument was simple. Messi deserved the award without question. Not because of his name, not because of his reputation, but because every objective measure pointed to him. The stats, the man of the match count, his impact on Argentina's entire path through the tournament, and what he managed to do at an age when most players have long since retired from the international stage. And then came the line that's already being clipped and shared everywhere. Mourinho said, "The only real consolation is that history isn't written by the people who hand out trophies. It's written by what people actually remember. And in 10 years, nobody is going to remember who technically won this particular award. What they'll remember is a 39-year-old man who carried an entire national team to a World Cup final and delivered one of the greatest individual tournaments the sport has ever seen. That, he said, is the real award, and it's not something that can be voted away or taken back. He finished with the sharpest point of all. Messi doesn't need another piece of metal to prove anything to anyone. His legacy is already bigger than any trophy. But the award needed him far more than he needed it, because giving it to him would have meant the award still stood for what it's supposed to stand for, honoring the best, not just honoring the winner. So the question now is simple. Did FIFA get this one badly wrong? Was Mourinho right to break his silence? Or is this just noise around a result that's already final? Let us know exactly where you stand in the comments. And if you don't want to miss the next chapter of this story, because this isn't over, make sure you're subscribed.